The day Jesus died, the sky darkened. The earth quaked, the veil of the temple was torn in two, and standing at the foot of the cross was a Roman soldier, sword in hand, eyes fixed on a dying man who had just cried out, "It is finished." He had been ordered to oversee the execution. It was routine. 3 crucifixions, just another day of imperial brutality. But something was different about this one. And when it was time to confirm Jesus' death, this soldier steps forward and thrust a spear into his side. Blood and water flowed. That moment was a silent fulfillment of prophecy. But who was this soldier? Did he know what he was doing? What happened to him afterwards? And why do some revere him as a saint? His name isn't mentioned in the Bible, but tradition remembers him. The church remembers him. History remembers him. They call him Longinus. Let's walk through scripture and history to explore one of the most overlooked characters in the crucifixion story. Let's go back to that day, that moment. Golgotha, a hill just outside the walls of Jerusalem. The name itself means place of the skull. 3 crosses are raised, one in the middle, and on it hangs a man unlike any other, Jesus of Nazareth. It's about the 6th hour at noon, and suddenly the sun stops shining. Luke 23, verse 44 and 45 tells us, "And it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst." Now, imagine you're a Roman centurion. You've carried out dozens of crucifixions. You've nailed criminals to beams. You've heard their cries. You've seen death 1,000 times over. But this man was different. He didn't curse. He forgave. He cried out to God, not for vengeance, but for mercy. And then, just before he breathed his last, he cried, "It is finished." John 19, verse 30. The earth shakes, rocks split, graves open. Matthew 27, verse 54 says, "Now when the centurion and they that were with him watching Jesus saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, 'Truly, this was the Son of God.'" Let's pause here, because this is the first crack in the soldier's armor. A Roman centurion trained in war, loyalty to Caesar, and discipline under the empire utters a sentence no one expects. Truly, this was the Son of God. Not a good man, not a Jewish rabbi, but the Son of God. Who was this soldier? And what happened next? The Gospel of John is the only one that records this detail. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. John 19, verse 34. Why would a soldier pierce a dead man? Crucifixion was designed to kill slowly, by suffocation. Victims could linger for hours, sometimes days. To speed up the process, the soldiers would break the legs of the crucified so they could no longer push themselves up to breathe. But when they came to Jesus, they found he was already dead. Still, to make absolutely sure, one of them, this unnamed soldier, took his spear and thrust it into Jesus' side. Out came blood and water. Doctors and theologians have long discussed this. Some say the flow of blood and water confirms Jesus died of a ruptured heart, literally a broken heart. Others see it as deeply symbolic. Blood, symbol of redemption. Water, symbol of cleansing and new birth. John 19, verse 35 immediately follows with this, "And he that saw it bare record, and his record is true, and he knoweth that he saith true, that ye might believe." John is telling us, I saw it. I was there. This matters. Now here's where the story gets interesting. History tells us the name of the soldier who held that spear was Longinus. The name Longinus doesn't appear in Scripture, so where does it come from? The name is first found in the apocryphal writings. These are non-canonical texts and early Christian tradition. The earliest mention of the soldier comes from the Gospel of Nicodemus, 4th-5th century, where he is called Longinus, derived from longi, Greek for spear. In the Eastern tradition, the pseudo-Cyril homily recounts his name and describes his miracle of regaining sight after the spear wound spurts water from Jesus' side into his eyes. In Western tradition, the Golden Legend, Jacobus de Vorgane, 13th century, narrates his conversion and martyrdom under Emperor Trajan in Cappadocia. These stories highlight how both East and West embrace Longinus not as a myth, but as a redeemed man whose transformation transcended regional church divides. So, it's possible that the name was assigned later to the one who wielded the spear, much like calling someone the lancer or the spearman. But early Christian tradition goes further. It claims that Longinus was the very same centurion who said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." In other words, the soldier who pierced Jesus was the same soldier who believed in him. That changes everything, because it means this wasn't just an execution. It was a turning point in a man's life, an encounter with the dying Son of God that pierced not just flesh, but soul. Centurions like Longinus held a prestigious and pivotal role in the Roman army. Tasked with commanding about 80 soldiers a century, the centurion was known for discipline, physical strength, and practical leadership. Unlike foot soldiers, centurions were often promoted from the ranks due to merit and could come from local populations, including provincial men. Their job required them to maintain order, enforce military law, and execute punishments, including crucifixion. Equipped with authority and status, centurions wore unique crested helmets and carried their distinctive vine staff, vitis, symbolizing their rank and capacity to discipline. This background gives important insight into Longinus' mindset. He did not stand at the foot of the cross just as a bystander. He was there in a professional capacity, representing Rome's ruthless order. Crucifixion was the ultimate humiliation for dissidents and criminals, a spectacle meant to enforce political and religious compliance. Yet this man's heart shifted at the cross. His journey reminds us that even the most ardent agents of oppressive systems can become humble witnesses of truth. Crucifixion was more than execution. It was psychological warfare. Romans used it to spread fear and instill obedience. Jesus' crucifixion happened against a backdrop of simmering resentment among Jews under Roman occupation, with insurgencies and crackdowns common in Galilee and Judea. A centurion standing under Jesus' cross symbolized imperial power. For that soldier to openly affirm Jesus as Son of God, or truly the Son of God, was tantamount to spiritual treason in Roman eyes. This shows the magnitude of his conversion. A man shaped by the Roman Empire and spending his life perpetuating its cruelties, now recognizing divinity in the victim before him. That pivot was profound. So what happened to Longinus? Early Christian sources, especially writings from the Eastern Church, suggest that Longinus left the Roman army, became a follower of Jesus, and was eventually martyred for his faith. The Acts of Pilate, an ancient apocryphal text, contains legends of Longinus proclaiming the gospel and performing miracles. It tells of him being arrested, tortured, and finally beheaded for refusing to renounce Christ. The 4th century letter of Pilate to Tiberius also describes Longinus as a faithful believer. Though we can't treat these texts as historical facts, they reflect a powerful tradition that held weight in the early church. The Catholic and Orthodox churches venerate Longinus as a saint. His feast day is celebrated on October 16th in the Western Church and on October 22nd in the Eastern Church. But even more compelling than his name or his feast day is this: the man who crucified Jesus became a witness to his divinity. Isn't that the story of the gospel? That no one, no matter how guilty, is beyond the reach of grace? Throughout Christian history, Longinus appears in stained glass windows, frescoes, and statues. One of the most famous depictions of him stands in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, sculpted by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. In it, Longinus holds the spear, looking upward, as if forever frozen in the moment of revelation. In Eastern Orthodox icons, he is sometimes portrayed alongside Saint Stephen and other early martyrs, a reminder that grace has no limits even for a Roman executioner. Christian devotion to Longinus grew rapidly in the early centuries. He became a symbol of divine transformation from killer to convert, from soldier to saint. His relics, believed to include pieces of the spear, were venerated throughout Europe in the Middle Ages. Whether or not these relics are authentic, they underscore a deep hunger in the church to connect with the man who saw Jesus die and believed. Have you ever heard of the Holy Lance, also known as the Spear of Destiny? It is a relic believed by some to be the actual spear used by Longinus to pierce Christ's side. Over the centuries, this spear has been housed in different locations. One claimed version resides in the Vatican. Another is in Vienna's Hofburg Palace. A third said to have been discovered during the First Crusade in Antioch. Even Adolf Hitler was reportedly fascinated by the Spear of Destiny, believing it granted power to whoever possessed it. But is any of this true? Historically, we can't verify the spear's authenticity. Scholars largely agree that stories surrounding the lance are likely medieval legends. Still, the fact that people have preserved these tales for centuries reveal the weight of the original moment. A soldier pierced Jesus' side, and what poured out wasn't just blood and water. It was a tidal wave of grace. So why should you care about a Roman soldier who lived 2,000 years ago? Because Longinus is us. He represents the skeptic, the outsider, the one who didn't grow up in the faith, the one who carried out orders, the one who sinned deeply, and yet, when faced with Jesus on the cross, he saw, he believed, he changed. His story tells us that no one is beyond redemption, not a thief on the cross, not a persecutor like Saul, not a Roman executioner. Let's revisit that image. The soldier lifts his spear. Jesus is already dead, and still he's pierced. Why? Because it was prophesied. Zechariah 12, verse 10, "They shall look upon me whom they have pierced." Even in death, Jesus fulfilled prophecy. Even in death, his body was still giving blood and water, grace and cleansing. And the soldier who wielded the spear, he didn't just wound the Messiah. He was welcomed into the very grace that flowed from that wound. We don't know for sure if the man's name was Longinus. We don't know every detail of his life after the cross, but we know this: he saw the Son of God. He believed in him. And history says he followed him unto death. Maybe you've pierced Jesus with your past, with your doubts, with your choices. But if God can redeem a Roman soldier at the cross, he can redeem you. All it takes is a moment of recognition. Truly, this was the Son of God. This is Divine Mysteries, where scriptures come alive. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our videos. If this story stirred something in you, share it with someone who needs the reminder. No one is beyond the reach of grace. And the ones who wound Christ are the very ones he came to heal.